Another day, another new pair of jeans. Bugger the ironing. Okay, so what I thought we'd take a look at today is changing a circular saw blade. Not just straightforward changing a circular saw blade. These days they tend to have what we call reducer rings included. It seems to be cheaper for them to make the one biggest bore possible, the 30mm in the centre, and then they include what they call reducer rings, which is basically like an adapter ring. It sits in the middle, so it'll be a ring with 30mm to fit that bore, and then they'll put another hole in the middle of that ring, then reduce it down to 20mm, 16mm or 18mm. Okay, so what you'll have to do is you'll still have to make sure you've got the right overall size diameter blade for your particular circular saw. That'd be, for mine, 205, but 2010 will fit my saw as well, but it came with a 205. That usually it'll fit a 2010. That's because they're not circular saw. You'd expect circular saw blades to be made dimension wise perfect to what they say, but they're never always tend to be bang on. I think the blade I had, it's a 205 blade, but it was more like 207 when it was measured. Again, that's probably what it's halfway between the two, which is why it'll still fit. I've tested it and it'll still work with there's enough clearance for a 210 millimeter blade as well in there. You got to check them. Sometimes the actual bore in the centre as well isn't exactly bang on 30. You know, it might be 30.5 to 29, or you got to be careful. In that case, obviously, if it is too small, then you're not going to be able to get the adapter in. If it's not, if it's too big, obviously it's going to be too loose. It's going to fall out. So you got to be careful of that. You will, 9 times out of 10, they make them so they're ever so slight, the rings ever so slightly bigger to fit into the circle. So you have to really tap that in there. That will show you that with a mallet or a hammer. If you don't have a mallet, you should be fine with a hammer. You're not going to damage anything really with this with the circular saw. With the material it's made out of, you should be fine using a hammer. So it's not exactly straightforward. I know a lot of people, you know, this video, I know what I'm doing. I changed 20 circular saw blades. What's he doing this? But there's some of you out there that won't know what you do. There'll be some of casual DIYers that will be confronted with having to do this, and now they're facing this adapter ring problem. I'm sure there'll be people out there that can't push the adapter ring in there, and they're thinking, oh, you know, I can't get this in, and they just left it and they can't be bothered with it. So take a look at that. I am back on my previous video because I got fed up with the last recorder. It seemed to keep giving me the left side of the stereo mix and not the right side. Well, a lopsided audio, and I had to keep processing it back into mono, which got on my nerves. I am back using another one now. The thing with this video is it does seem to, although I'm looking at the lens, it does seem to make me sometimes look like I'm looking away from the lens, but it's one of them things, you know, nothing I can do about it, I'm afraid. Okay, so circular saw blades. Today I'm going to change a circular saw blade with a reducer ring as well, but I'll go over, you know, obviously changing a blade with a fixed bore in it. But I think that will be pretty obvious and pretty straightforward. Now, things that you need to notice: you're going to need a hex or an Allen key to get this clamp out, centre clamp on here. And another thing what you need to take notice of first of all is the direction of the blade, or which way the teeth are facing. You'll see here that there's an arrow marker on here which tells you that the teeth cut in that anti-clockwise direction. Also the teeth on there that particular blade would be going around like that, so that blade would have to be turned around. You wouldn't see stuff on the top of that blade. Now, first and foremost, as well, as you'll need to know what overall diameter that your blade is. Now, if there's no documentation, you don't have the box or the manual, and it isn't indicated on here, this actually says 210. So this will take a 210 blade, or up to a 210 blade, and it actually shows the actual direction of the teeth in correspondence with that arrow as well, actually. So this original blade, I did measure it, and it was about 2827, so it's in between 205 and a 210. So this particular saw will take up to a 210. It will take a 205 as well. I know that. So what you want to do is, if you can get your, if you're not sure, like I say, we've got an indication there, but if you're not sure the diameter, you don't need fancy measuring equipment. Just a tape measure or a steel rule, or something to measure across the diameter of the blade once you take it out. Obviously you'll have to get it out before you go and order one online or go to the DIY store. You'll have to get this out and measure it. What you'll have to do now, watch your fingers, the guard here, you'll have to pull this back, and you're going to have to chock this blade up while you undo this nut. So the best way to do that is either to lock that in a workbench, DIY workbench, like a workmate, or a vise, or failing that, hold it still with a pair of pliers. Now, don't get tempted to use a pair of what we call mole grips, locking pliers, because I've done that before in the past. You can lock the locking pliers up and then chock it, turn the wheel and chock that up against there, and it won't move. But you'll end up breaking the teeth off your saw blade, and I know that from experience. So be careful. If you do break a tooth off your blade, if you've got a high tooth count, especially if it's a brand new blade, it shouldn't matter, because the rest of the teeth, so don't throw it away, the rest of the teeth will pick up for that one that's blunt or missing. But you can also increase the RPM as well to increase the amount of teeth per minute that's going into the cut to make up for that as well. So don't be too concerned over that. So what you want to do is hold your blade. You need your Allen key of the right size. This one doesn't have to be, it could be a standard Allen key, but this one's just got a lot of leverage. And do your bolt. You've got a washer on there. There's your holding plate. It's keyed. It's keyed in the centre there to fit that spindle on there. So you keep that safe to one side. You can now also watch your fingers against it. You can remove your blade and just get your tape measure or your steel rule, if I can get the thing up. Get your tape measure or your steel rule and measure across the diameter. You should be fine for finding yourself a new blade. Now, this is obviously a 16mm bore straight away. Now, like I say to you, if you can find one of these, it's always best to use one with a straight 16mm bore or 20mm, whatever bore your the fitment of your saw is. As you can see, again, you don't need fancy like a caliper or anything. You can put a tape measure or a steel rule across the centre of there and get a reading of what, make sure you try and get it dead centre. You can get a reading of the diameter of that, and you can go and pick the right size bore. Obviously, if you're fitting a circular saw blade, it's with the right size bore straight away. It's simple. You just put it back in and lock it down with what we've just done. Make sure it's tight. Really hold that blade with the pliers, or lock it down in the vise like I've mentioned before, and really tighten down that centre clamp on that cap screw. Now, like I said, a lot of the 16mm bore discs cost about £29–30. Things like DeWalt and stuff like that. Now, this is an okay, this Parkside one. I think I bought this about 2002, 2003. It's alright, it's a nice saw for what it is. Parkside obviously is a Lidl's brand. They, especially back then, they get decent manufacturers to make them, so things like Walter and Iron Hell, similar to what Aldi's do. In fact, a lot of them are the same firm. So see, let's say Competence .com, Germany. So you know, it's a decent one. It's got the laser for if you want them accurate cuts, although I still use the main marker on the plate there, the guard. So what I suspect a lot of you won't do, like me, is put an £30 blade on what was essentially, I think this was about a £40 circular saw. I saw they had one in the same time as I picked up the new blade the other day. I think that was a brand new one, was about £34. So I suspect a lot of people out there aren't going to put a £30 blade in a 30-odd pound saw. So these blades come with the reducer. They've got a 30mm bore, so they don't fit straight off, but they, as you see, the bore is 30mm. But however, it does come with the two reducer rings for 20 and 16mm. Now, I said before, you would always prefer to do it without the reducer rings, or the adapter if you want to call it that. But you know, take a look at that. That blade was £3.99, so you know, for home DIY use, a bit of MDF, a bit of gardening timber, and the odd 2x4 plywood. You know, those blades for £3.99, they're going to be more than enough for what I use it for, and for what most people use it for. So you know, it kind of translates to the value of the tool. Like I say, I wouldn't put a £30 blade in there. So that's what the rings come as. They obviously sit in the centre of the blade. They obviously sit in the centre of the blade like that, and they usually come a tiny bit bigger, so you can manage to really tap that in and get that in snug. Like I say, they are a pain to get in. You'll find that you won't be able to push it in, and that's why a lot of people will probably just give up. But if you take a hammer or a mallet and you just give it a tap, just put it down on your workbench and give it a tap with a mallet or we'll take a look at that now, and what will happen then is, as long as you can get it in there relatively square, you want to get it in as square as possible, but the pressure, once you've got it in there and it's on there and it's located over the centre, the pressure created when you tie that down will push that square, but you want to get it in as square as you can first. So if you just take your mallet or your hammer, you're not going to damage anything too much with it. Just tap that in as centrally as you can. Then, he said you can put your, or as I say, you can put your, remember the correct orientation of the blade, like that. This one you can actually see the writing. You'd expect it to be the same brand as well, really. But be careful that you don't actually knock that centre ring back out. You'll see that it's not exactly as central as you could have got it, but it's slightly sticking out this side. But when you put the pressure down off this just make sure it's located, the centre of that adapter ring is located around the actual 16mm ring, which is actually very, very small. So again, be careful, make sure you grip the in between two teeth. That's why I recommend either a small pair of pliers or some needle nose pliers. So again, still be very careful because you can still break the teeth off with the pliers as well. So there we go. We should be very, very careful. Try and hold the actual blade and keep away from the actual. Make sure you get it as tight as you possibly can. You don't want it coming undone. So seems to cut all right, but yeah, well, they seem to work. I'm not a fan of the actual reducer reducer ring concept, but it seems to be for home DIY and things of that ilk. It seems to be value, I suppose. We can get a blade for £3.99 instead of £30. This I got a load of these circular saw blades. It's the right size. They all obviously come with the 30mm bore, so I can actually use these now. With this, obviously there won't be the usual way around. These are obviously built for a circular saw that rotates clockwise. You can always turn it around. It's exactly the same the other side, so it doesn't really matter. Just have the bare face, but it works. Like I say, I'm not a total fan of the idea. If you can get one that's all in one, like that, then it would be obviously better. Obviously be well, I'd say it from a safety point of view, but it seems to work okay with the adapter or reducer ring. Just any signs of problem, any vibrations, any wobble or anything, real bad wobble and vibration, obviously stop, check it, make sure, tighten it back up, make sure it's all tight. But it does seem to work okay enough. That's how you put them on anyway. Like I say, not the greatest in my opinion, but they do work. They're obviously a lot cheaper than a £30 fixed 16mm bore disc that I'm not going to pay 30, but it costs £30. You know, in a £40 or a £30, depending on what your. I think most of the circular saws these days, you know, aren't that much, especially the corded ones. I think even the Black and Deckers and things like that don't cost a lot these days. So £30 blade's probably not worth it. I know a lot of people will be weighing up the pros and the cons of the £30 blades, like DeWalt and stuff like that, being better than some of the cheaper blades that you can get. But for cutting the odd 2x4 and the odd piece of plywood, a bit of MDF for a project or something, DIY wise, I don't see nothing wrong with them myself, to be honest with you. So that's how you change a blade. That's the outcome. That's what it's like. Like I say, I'm not particularly keen on the idea of reducer rings, but that's how you do it anyway. And like I say, when you get it tapped in, try and get it as true as you can. But it is hard with them. But once you put the pressure of the clamp, any that's left sticking up over the edge, it will be pushed in square anyway. But like I say, a lot of the circular saw blades, even probably more especially the cheaper ones, they never always seem to be bang on. They don't exactly run some of them, even the ones with the fixed board, don't always run exactly true. But again, that could be to do with the print that's on there, giving that effect. So but they never always seem to be bang on the diameter either. Like the diameter said 210 on there, but this was actually about 207, 208. So it's closer to, in some respects, it's closer to 205, and in another, it's either side really of the 205 size and the 2010. So yeah, it's a bit of a no man's land. The same with the centre bore. Sometimes it can be 17, sometimes like 16.2, 16.3, 16.5. So you know, they're never always bang on, but it is what it is. But that's how you change the blade with a reducer ring. That's the outcome. Anyway.